So welcome, everybody, to Choose Greater Health with Paige Spears.
And today I'm here with my guest, Christina. And Christina, you can give our audience an introduction.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paige. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Veselak. Have been a licensed psychotherapist for 40 years, working with trauma, working with various, psychological issues, but working a lot with addiction and especially people who have a really hard time staying away from their addictive behavior and substance. I also help people I'm also have been a mental health nutritionist for 30 years. And so I fully integrate mental health nutrition in all sorts of ways, including amino acid therapy, into my work with people, including helping people off psychotropic medication. In 2015, I was so excited by the results I was getting with my own clients that I started a school, the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition, where I teach other people, other practitioners, as well as anybody else who wants to learn, how to get the same results with your clients. And then a couple of years ago, I started a nonprofit called Eating Protein Saves Lives, so that because it actually does in many, many instances. And I want to get this information out to the ordinary person.
That's really important to have a focus on nutrition for mental health, since that is what could have prevented all of my issues going as far back as 2004, and then what actually helped me get off of those medications following everything that happened in 2016. And that was a really big part of everything for me, since I think what started all the blood clots that led to oxygen deprivation brain injury in 2016 was the result of 10, 12 years of anti-anxiety medications and combo hormonal birth control. So that really did a number on my system. Although I think what brought the anxiety on also was imbalance caused by 4 or 5 years of uh, doxycycline, and my general practitioner had prescribed that for acne. So there are a lot of things that doctors haven't known, and they really should know to get the best standard of care up to par.
Absolutely. And it's really sad that the training doctors get is so narrow and so limited. Their toolboxes are so tiny because they actually end up very inadvertently doing a lot of damage and don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, holistic nutrition training should really be a part of doctors' education in all respects.
I think it should be, or at least enough training that they understand the value of it so that they can have a holistic nutritionist in their office and insurance will pay for it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And if there had been more education and awareness of possible interactions and side effects, my case and situation could have been prevented. Since I had a gene site test done in 2016 that showed the interactions of those medications on a metabolic level, but it was too late for anything to really be done about that by then.
That's right. So this is what I do with my clients is I, have a rather large toolbox, because I start with food and then purified foods such as amino acids or fish oil to feed the brain what it needs to function optimally. And you see, I think this concept is missing. Well, I know I think about it. Even though research goes back many decades, the idea that the brain actually functions better when it's fed on a daily basis the nutrients it requires to function, right? That concept has never ever been part of the conversation. And so these poor psychiatrists are left with tiny little toolboxes of just medications that move things around and no concept that we can actually feed the brain what it needs to function optimally. And as a result, people cope with stress so much more gracefully, and symptoms start falling off. And people can start doing, if they need to do psychological healing work, they now have the wherewithal to really fully engage in therapy.
Yeah, it was 8 months of twice weekly neurofeedback sessions that helped to bring me back to a good emotional baseline after the sudden psychiatric medication stop and all that happened there. And from there, I was able to incorporate a healthier nutrition plan. And within a few years, get on a customized supplement plan. And that's helped a lot too. And now I'm seeing a naturopath and getting the hormonal side of things dialed in better.
That's great. And when you are on my podcast, I'm going to ask you all sorts of questions about that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So have you had many brain injury survivors or blood clot survivors as clients?
Yes, I have. In fact, I have a student right now who's a blood clot survivor, and she's doing beautifully. She still has some symptoms, but just since she's been in my program and being on the supplements I've suggested, her her brain is working better and her language is better. And I've had, other people who've had brain injuries from other sources, right? Who also, once you bring in the right nutrients, do a whole lot better. Because one of a lot of things that happen when you've had brain injury from any source is brain inflammation. And so we want to use very specific nutrients to lower neuroinflammation.
Yeah, I take a supplement called Neuro O2, and that improves oxygen availability to the brain. And I've also gone gluten and dairy free for a month last autumn, and I've done it again for the last month now and continuing and hoping that will reduce the inflammation and anything contributing to sciatica flare-ups that have been happening since December and settle that down.
Yeah, I've actually been gluten free for going on 40 years now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 37, 38 years. And it turned my life around. I was actually diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 2,
Hmm.
but I didn't know about the gluten connection then. So I grew up eating gluten. I grew up ill, low stamina, bad coordination, speech defect. Now, some of this was also due to be born, 7 weeks early, and being in an incubator for 7 weeks.
That was
But
me for about the first 4 weeks of my life.
yeah, and this does damage as well, both emotional and psychological damage, as well as physical and brain damage. And so I know for myself, when I first discovered fish oil, for instance, the omega-3 fatty acids,
Yeah.
and got on a couple of grams a day, it's like the sun came out. All of a sudden, my mood was brighter, my energy was brighter, everything was brighter because it was, both nurturing all the neurons in my brain, but also reducing inflammation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what else does your initial client evaluation look like?
So I want to find out what people are eating. I I may do a 3-day food diary, but I often just say, hey, tell me what you ate yesterday from beginning of the day to the end of the day. And what I'm looking for is to see if they're getting in enough protein. We recommend a minimum of 60 to 80 grams of protein a day for people with mental health or addiction issues. Um, is blood sugar stable? Are people eating regularly enough so the blood sugar doesn't plummet, because when blood sugar drops, adrenaline comes in, and adrenaline is horrifically destabilizing. So I want to make sure they're eating in a to balance blood sugar, and then that they're not eating a whole bunch of ultra processed foods. So that's what I'm looking for from food. And then I give people what we call our amino acid therapy chart, which is a neurotransmitter depletion questionnaire. So we know exactly what symptoms are of neurotransmitter depletion. You know, if dopamine is low, if serotonin is low, if GABA is low, if the endorphins are low. We know what those symptoms look like in human beings. So we have this really nifty little questionnaire that just asks those basic symptoms. And from that perspective, then, I can then recommend, now I know what they're eating, I know what their neurotransmitters are looking like, are you on any other medication? And then I can very easily put them on a beginning nutrient protocol that will probably involve a couple of very specific amino acids to rebuild neurotransmitter function. Because amino acids, and very few people know this, amino acids can work to shift mood and behavior in the right direction within 20 minutes.
Wow.
They're anti-addictive.
Mm-hmm. That
So
could have gone a long way with my benzodiazepine dependency thing.
absolutely. And in fact, we use the amino acid theanine and sometimes GABA for most people. Some small percentage of people can't tolerate it, but most people can, in helping people come off benzos, but also in helping them keep from having to get on them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite amino acids is theanine, and it supports GABA, it supports serotonin, but it partially blocks all of our stress hormones. And so it just brings with a sort of calm focus or a calm alertness. So
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite amino acids for any sort of stress or anxiety, or if you have ADHD and you start spinning and then you freeze and want to run away. Theanine is great for stopping that, spin, panic, freeze, procrastination cycle.
that sounds like it might even be more gentle than adaptogens, at least initially.
Well, it is. The adaptogens come in underneath and can start supporting. Amino acids go straight to the neurotransmitters and can support their functioning within 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that buys you time
yeah.
while you are doing the root cause work. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
believe in finding the root cause, but I also want to help people function better in the moment.
Yeah, a lot of my issues were that neurochemical nutrition related. Since when it started, well, there was the stress of college, although after a while it just seemed like the anxiety flare-ups had no definitive cause.
That's right. And sometimes it's just due to your own depletion, especially if you've not been eating the foods necessary to keep your calming neurotransmitters happy.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely gotten more exploratory in the kitchen in the last 9 years, and
Mhm.
that's with coming up with my own system for meal planning and grocery lists and getting things ready ahead of time. And I have a whole flow with that now.
Wonderful. Congratulations. And I bet you feel a whole lot better and more stable than you did before all of this happened.
Yeah, and when things do get iffy emotionally, I have at least a bit more space to find the triggers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then work through them. Yeah.
Hmm.
My motto is it's our brain's job to allow us to cope with stress gracefully. But to do that, it needs to be fed optimally. Have you fed your brain today?
Yeah,
So,
that's
all you listeners out there, have you fed your brain today? It's a really good question.
yeah, and that's a good one to end on. Anything else you'd like to conclude with?
Um, No, just these amino acids, these nutrients are available over the counter. There's lots of research behind them. There's lots of literature. And then there's training if you want to learn how to use this in a very methodical way for yourself or for your clients.
Thanks for a great conversation, Christina. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Paige.